Hello Star Wars fans, and welcome to episode 64 of Journey into Legends. Today we are going to be reading Vision of the Future by Timothy Zahn. Vision of the Future was released in 1998, and it is the second book in the Hand of Thrawn duology. I am super excited to finish this duology and to see how it not only brings the series to a conclusion, but also the Bantam era as a whole. Without further ado, let's read and review. Continuing off the setup from the last book, the New Republic's infighting brought on from the Caamas crisis continues in this book, focusing a lot more this time on the search for the Caamas Document. And unfortunately, although I found this plotline to be very interesting conceptually, it made the book very drawn out and confusing to read at times, with there being multiple unrelated missions to find the document. Han and Lando head to Bastion, the Imperial capital, to find the document. Card and Shada go looking for Jorj Cardass in the hopes that he has a copy of the document. Bel Iblis launches an information raid on the Ubiquitate base at Yaga Minor, and I'm pretty sure there's one or two more that are slipping my mind. And in the end, all of these missions fail. Han and Lando are given a copy by fake Thrawn that ends up being altered. Card comes up empty-handed since Cardass doesn't actually have a copy after all, and Bel Iblis gets trapped by fake Thrawn before his slicers can even make it to the Yaga Minor base. In the end, the only ones to successfully find the Caamas document are Luke and Mara, who completely discover it by chance at the Hand of Thrawn fortress on Niroen. I understand that the document is a very important document, and it's logical that multiple missions are launched to find it, but I still found the execution of this plotline to be extremely messy, especially since a majority of it ended up being a redundant waste of time. Luke and Mara's Niroen story was definitely the plotline I was most looking forward to coming into this book. I've always really loved their dynamic and chemistry, and I couldn't wait for them to finally get together. But unfortunately, much like the main story of this book, this plotline was very disappointing to me. First of all, Luke and Mara's romance was a bit underdeveloped, extremely rushed, and just plain unbelievable in my opinion. Most of this book is just them debating different ethical questions, and they only start to feel for each other when, in the midst of battle, they connect in the Force, almost becoming one singular entity. And don't get me wrong, that was a cool scene, but it felt like it came out of nowhere. There was no setup for that moment, and it felt like a cheap shortcut Zahn took to finally get them together. Besides their romance, I also found this plotline just plain boring. I found the Quam Quay and the Quam Jaw creatures that accompanied Luke and Mara to be extremely boring and only took away from the plotline. Surprisingly, my favorite part of this book and the duology as a whole ended up being Card and Shada's search for Jorj Cardass. I really loved Cardass's character, and I was really fascinated with the story of his encounter with the Dark Jedi and Yoda, and his Force training with the Ang-Ti monks, and would have really loved to see that story play out in a novel of its own. Another aspect of this book that I really liked was the way it concluded the Galactic Civil War. Admiral Pellaeon's character was absolutely fantastic throughout this whole series, and I love that he was the one to make peace with the New Republic. His whole storyline of negotiating with the New Republic and outing Disra, Tierce, and Flim was just so badass. One thing that I found disappointing about this storyline was that, similar to the conclusion of the Caamas Crisis storyline, the actual signing of the treaty was completely glossed over and was pretty much a footnote in the book's final chapter. And that's pretty characteristic of Zahn's handling of this duology as a whole. All the setup was there, and the concept was great, but overall I think Zahn fumbled the bag with this book's conclusion. So overall, I found this book to be quite disappointing. It was extremely long and drawn out, there was so much redundancy and plots that went absolutely nowhere, and all the great setup that Zahn planted, he failed to capitalize on in the book's finale. I'm probably in the minority saying this, but despite it being just set up for this book, I think Spectre of the Past is the better of the two books. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for my next review where I'll be starting the Bounty Hunter Wars trilogy by K.W. Jeter with Book 1, The Mandalorian Armor. See ya.